Now, what next for Iran after President Raisi's death? We turn to Professor Robert Lawrence this morning for what lies ahead for the mourning country. Welcome.
Morning. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Harsh weather conditions are reportedly what caused the tragic crash, but there are conspiracy theories saying there may have been more to the crash. Why is that?
Well, first of all, Iran's no stranger to high-level assassinations, right? We saw this with Qasem Soleimani a few years ago, and even a month ago with the Israeli attack on the Iranian embassy in Damascus. So inevitably, some in the country will come to the conclusion that it was Mossad and or the CIA who did this. Further complicating that line of thinking is that the late president was coming from the Azerbaijani border, and Azerbaijan and Israel have close ties, and that Azerbaijan supplies about 40% of Israel's oil, and Azerbaijan is the second biggest consumer of Israeli military material. So this is going to there's a lot of fertile ground for conspiracy theories to grow. On top of this, domestically, the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, his son is one of the two people who were believed to be in the race to succeed the supreme leader, the other one being the late president. Now that the late president is gone, some domestically might come to the conclusion that there was foul play there as well. In reality, we really don't know enough information about anything to declare there being foul play. We don't know if it's mechanical failure or the weather as reported. But you know, the conspiratorial nature of some politics, politics in some countries, kind of breed fertile ground for this. So I think we'll see a lot more conspiracy theories come out in the next few weeks.
Right. Because the president has died in office, the question is who will take over the leadership now? And there will be an early election on June 28th. Professor Lawrence, let's talk about that.
Right. Well, according to Article 131 of the Iranian Constitution, the first vice president, now former first vice president Mohammad Mossadegh, has to form a council with the head of the judiciary and the speaker of the legislative body. And it's their duty to conduct elections within 50 days. I believe it's been announced that there's going to be an election in late June, but that could be pushed back. They have 50 days to complete it.
Well, then, will a new leadership change the course of Iranian political and foreign policies compared to what, Raisi has done so far?
Well, domestically, there's a chance that they could pick somebody who's less inclined to be so heavy-handed in how they treat dissenters, right? That's been largely unpopular amongst the youth vote, especially the legislative elections this March have very low voter turnout, which was partially seen as a result of this heavy-handed way of dealing with protesters. So there's that possibility, but I think that's relatively unlikely given the makeup of the Guardian Council and the Assembly of experts who kind of control the way that elections are held in Iran. Foreign policy-wise, I don't believe that there'll be much of a change from the status quo. Iran has had largely successful foreign policy under Raisi. They've improved ties with Russia and China. They've entered into a rapprochement with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries. And they've been able to efficaciously utilize regional proxies and their axis of resistance to push their regional agenda while receiving very little, very substantial repercussions back home. So I think you're looking at more of the status quo.
Would you say same status quo for the Israel-Hamas war as well?
I would. In fact, the real policy-making power comes through the supreme leader, and the IRGC, and both of those are still very well intact. The Israel-Hamas war, as far as from the viewpoint of Tehran, they've prevented what was an ongoing rapprochement between Turkey and Israel. They prevented any expansion of the Abraham Accords for the time being. Of course, this is just for the time being, but and they've also been able, again, to utilize and demonstrate the effectiveness of regional proxies. Additionally, I would say that they've had a PR victory in global politics, and that they've kind of championed the global South in this conflict. So I don't see what incentive they would have to change course right now. In the long term, should there be a more reform-minded successor to Ali Khamenei when the time comes, things might change. But in the short term, I don't see there being a big shift.
I see. Well, Washington expressed condolences while saying that Raisi had blood on his hands. Will the change of Iranian leadership be a headache for the U.S. ahead of its presidential election in November especially, or not as much? What do you think?
Well, the presidential election in November is going to be complicated for several reasons in the United States. And there's certainly the Israeli-Hamas conflict is going to be a big talking point, and U.S. policy in the Middle East in general, and that's intrinsically, geared towards our relationship with Iran and how we've dealt with Iran. It's going to be a big talking point, and I think Biden's going to come under a lot of criticism from Trump or whoever else might be on stage in any of those debates. However, from a Washington point of view, I don't think they're going to see much difference. Whoever's going to replace Raisi, given the makeup of the Guardian Council and the Assembly of Experts, is going to be a like-minded individual who's going to do the Supreme Leader's bidding, I believe. So I don't think there'll be much of a change. Thus, the difference between what that conversation would have been during the election if it were Raisi as president or whoever his successor is, I don't think really changes the equation in Washington, U.S. electoral politics.
All right, Professor Lauren, thank you so much for your insight this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. You have a wonderful day.
You too.